Good Monday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center with this live update. Taking a look here at the current Doppler radar picture across North Florida and South Georgia right now. The nor'easter does continue here to affect the region. You can see that wind direction here, and we've still had some pretty high speeds here. Also, those temperatures kept down by the cloud cover, some rain causing some issues, high surf, coastal flooding. You kind of get the idea here as it's been kind of impactful across our viewing circle here in toward at least the first coast part, going up in toward southeastern Georgia. So I'll go ahead now and take off our wind arrows so you can get a better look at the Doppler radar technology, and you'll be able to see here some of this moisture off the coast. Just looking at some of this here, going between some of our different tools, you can kind of see we have some more accent trying to come on shore here as off of St. Augustine, some shower activity is noted by the Doppler radar right now. 76 degrees there in toward St. Augustine Airport. Keystone Heights right now, 73 degrees. And then as we get over toward the wind speeds, they're still noteworthy. I mean, at Jacksonville Beach, the Mayport Naval Air Station area, we're seeing 33 knots, so almost tropical force gust there, right there in toward eastern Duval County. Craig Municipal Airport, 24 knots. So you kind of get the idea. Some pretty strong winds still the story here. So something to kind of keep an eye on as we're looking across our region here. As we kind of broaden the view, you see the wind not as strong as we get out toward areas like Quincy, 15 knots. So just kind of run some of those numbers down for you real quick. I have my conversion table here, and I'll be able to kind of give you some of that information. So just give me just a second here. We have quite a few things from all of our different storms, and I'll kind of run down some of that for you. So in terms of some of the different numbers we have, so again, 33 knots at Mayport, that is equivalent there to 38 miles per hour. As we get up toward Fernandina Beach there at 23 knots, so we're talking about 26 miles an hour. So you kind of get the idea here of with some of these winds, they're kind of strong, not too impactful. Some pretty strong winds central South Florida as well. You can kind of tell by our wind indicators on the screen. Even a gust there, look at Daytona Beach too, about tropical force as well, 31 knots. So getting upward of 36 miles per hour. Now we are also watching the tropics here, an area in the Gulf of Mexico. This is of course tropical storm Beta there, and you'll be able to see how it impacts areas toward Texas. It's been pretty close toward the coast there, and I'll go over to other radar right now. So we even give you a better vantage point where you, by the way, before I switch it over, you see that green area on the screen. That is where we could have some isolated tornadoes. I know did have one tornado warning up toward the Galveston area earlier, but now that kind of show you some of this moisture on Houston. We don't have any flash flood warnings, flash flood watch, but no flash flood warnings, and that's great news. But this is going to be a slow mover, so we could get some here as we move along in the timeline. But I don't have the logo red anymore because things look a little bit better in terms of the overall scenario. This is not going to get to a hurricane. It doesn't look like at this point. It's been weakening instead of strengthening. There was that hurricane watch, but that's been taken away, and that's great news for these folks out toward the Lone Star State, now toward Louisiana as well, as some of this moisture coming into play out as we get towards southwest Louisiana. They're still recovering from Hurricane Laura there, so it's something that they have to focus on still in that recovery process nearly 4 weeks after that storm did move through there, I do believe. So that just kind of tells the story with everything that's been going on in toward that area. Speaking of the region there, let's break down some of these power outages, and we'll go ahead and show you as we get off toward Texas right now. We have about 6,950 customers or so, depending on when it updates. You see now 8,562 customers. So as we kind of look here, you kind of get an idea that we have a few as we get toward this area, but not many. And this isn't going to have a huge power outage impact. Maybe a tornado would be about the only thing that could really knock it out, or the rain really just knocking down a few trees with that wind. But the wind's not going to be too big of a factor. We're only getting max sustained there in that 40 to 50 mile per hour range. So this isn't too big of a deal. The wind's not that much different than what we're actually seeing on the first coast here. Maybe a little stronger, a little more concentrated, but not much. I mean, it's kind of intriguing to think about it like that. It's just been the overall pattern that's given us that nor'easter, a pretty impactful nor'easter here on toward the first coast. Now, as we get here, I'll move the mouse over down toward Louisiana. We're still looking at that recovery process from Laura and toward Calcasieu Parish, but the numbers are really going down, and that's good news. But still, 8,608 customers in the dark here almost 4 weeks after the storm. And that's really, really unfortunate. As we get over towards some of these other states here, we'll go to Alabama now. A little more impactful as we get toward Baldwin County here. You see about 25,000 or so in the dark still as we get there, but Mobile County doing great considering only 269 customers in the dark. And then as we get back, we'll go back to the overview one last time here, and we'll get to Florida Panhandle doing great as well, really. Escambia is the area we've been watching, down to 3,784 customers after Sally did come on through. So that's what we like to see, things improving there. Just kind of running down a few of those things there for you in terms of those numbers, those different outage numbers as we get towards some of these different communities. So again, we're looking at some of this moisture here in towards southeastern Texas. Coming into play still. We'll have to watch for some of that flooding here, some of that flash flooding potentially as we look at our rainfall estimates here. You can see as we look back, some of these spots getting over to 4 inches or so, but in toward Houston proper, looking more like 2 inches, Houston proper there. So that's a little bit better, but we'll continue to watch that. Not going to plan a cut in here unless this really strengthens for landfall, as we typically do cut in even for tropical storms making landfall. But we're just going to kind of run down what's happening now as I look into chats. That's and because this is not too big of a deal in terms of the landfall. I mean, we could get some issues, some pretty big issues in isolated spots with that flash flooding. Even a storm surge doesn't even look too impactful. There is a storm surge warning in play, but not too impactful overall, and that's what we like to see. As we get back toward our area right now, let's go ahead and show you what we're talking about here. You'll be able to kind of run down some of these temperature readings. Pretty cool out there. 76 degrees in toward Tallahassee. Pretty nice in terms of the temperature, even though those winds and that moisture kind of made it nasty out there. 73 over toward Keystone, as we were talking about there, toward parts of the Clay Bradford County region earlier. As we get toward Jacksonville Airport, 72. So really nice temperatures, and they're going to fall some more here as we look ahead to tonight. So that's something that is definitely a positive here when we're down toward the south. But again, cool air here, and then the sky conditions, though they have made it kind of gloomy, as I've alluded to. Let's take you to the baseball grounds now, and we'll be able to see what's happening there. You do see some of that sun trying to peek on out, but those clouds still a factor as well. Now to the stadium in Tallahassee at FSU, my alma mater, of course. See what it looks like for the Seminoles out there, the Seminole students, and we'll go ahead and show you a little more gloomy there, unfortunately, toward that Leon County, Big Bend area. So just a couple views we'll show you here. We'll go ahead now and we'll take you away from these shots, and we'll come back over to the broad view. And now let's go ahead and get back to the tropics a little. We already talked about some of this earlier, but let's go ahead and talk about Sally again. If you weren't with me on Friday, I kind of reviewed what happened with that in terms of the overall statistics here. The first landfall in hurricane since Ivan, 16 years to the day, ironically, there in toward parts of Alabama. And this made landfall there as I kind of step out of the way a little bit. Made landfall about 4:45 in the morning. Mobile, Pensacola area hardest hit. Those winds upwards of 105 miles an hour as it really strengthened there as we got closer toward landfall. But luckily things starting to get closer to normal. They're not bad to normal by any means, but especially as we're right at the coast. But as we get further in, things are better, getting pretty close to normal there in Mobile, as you saw with the power outage numbers almost down to zero. So that's what we like to see, that a little bit weaker side of the storm there in Pensacola, getting more of that worst weather there. So as we now go ahead and kind of broaden this out, we want to talk about our tropical storm again. Tropical storm Beta here. Tropical storm warning does remain in effect from Port Aransas to Morgan City, Port Aransas, Texas to Morgan City, Louisiana. This maximum sustained wind only at 45 miles an hour though, and the winds aren't going to be too big of a factor here, so not really getting many power outages probably from that. Could it's been a tornado knocking out some, or a tree falling from these winds knocking out some. But overall, I'm not expecting too many power outages here. Already supposedly getting some of these tropical storm winds here as we're looking along the coast. But as I've kind of looked at some things here behind the scenes, the winds, I'll put this back on. These are actually about the same as what we're getting, a little less than what we're getting here on toward the first coast right now. So kind of intriguing as I take off some more things. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Indicators here, it looks like as we get down toward Port Lavaca, only 27 knots. That gets us to 31 miles an hour. as we get toward Houston here, 28 knots. So at the airport there, we're only talking about winds to 32 miles an hour. So not too impactful, though we actually have some stronger wind with some moisture that could lead to some more flooding toward Louisiana as we get toward some of these spots. 31 knots gets us 36 miles an hour. As we look up to the north, New Iberia there, it looks like the Acadiana Regional Airport, 30 knots. So that gets us to 35 miles an hour. So interesting to see that here with this overall pattern, with the overall scenario there, kind of pumping in some of that moisture as we look back out toward the west. But now back toward that official track here in the overall perspective of the graphics, you do see again system not moving too much, and that could lead to some rain here, kind of adding on up as I've talked about. Northwest at only 5 miles an hour in the last advisory. Now, as we look toward the storm surge forecast, you see these numbers aren't extreme, but there is still a storm surge warning in play there from Port Aransas to Sabine Pass. So we'll continue to monitor that situation for those folks because getting some impacts there, but overall it's not too substantial. We've actually had numbers pretty close to this here as we're looking back toward the first coast with this nor'easter. So this kind of interesting to compare and contrast, but of course the rain is the big deal. The differentiating numbers here really are going to be those rainfall totals from this nor'easter we've seen in our area, and those rainfall totals are going to get here from our tropical storm in toward this area. So something to kind of compare and contrast. And as we look at those numbers, you can see some of that moisture here coming into play around Houston still. Even Lake Charles, the area recovering from Hurricane Laura, getting some of this moisture here coming into the picture. And I was just showing you there. And then we kind of have this moisture going up there as we look toward the Tennessee Valley and in toward parts of the Atlanta Metro as well. So we'll have to watch for that because they just got some of that rain from Sally. So we could have some issues there with some of that antecedent rainfall kind of, unfortunately, being a factor there as we look at some of these totals. Now, as we get toward the Florida, Big Bend, South Georgia, we're just kind of seeing some numbers here as we get to the next 7 days or so. Pretty low, but rain chances are going up overall here as we look toward the end of the week. They're going to fall down first here. The nor'easter no longer being a factor really as we're seeing a quarter half inch so and toward the Big Bend, South Georgia, and then over toward the first coast, north central Florida, maybe a half an inch here, getting up to 3/4 of an inch. Of course, isolated spots can always get more than what this is showing, but it's kind of giving you some perspective there with that scale there on the left side of the screen. And then Hurricane Teddy's another system we're watching as we're looking toward Bermuda. Tropical storm warning remains in effect there. And we're going to watch this as it moves toward parts of eastern Canada and not too far away from Maine, even a tropical storm warning in play. As this storm's going to get stronger here as we're looking ahead, it's going to grow in size here as well. So something to kind of take into consideration. Could have a tropical storm alert for extreme eastern Maine, but right now not too big of a deal. But we'll just monitor there. High surf is a deal though, and again, it's kind of had an impact here on our weather with the nor'easter developing. And then as we look toward the 5-day cyclone formation probability, you do see here there's one over my shoulder there, 80% chance. That's actually Paulette gonna regenerate, it looks like. So I don't have it checked off the list right now. But Teddy, we have that one we've been talking about. Of course, as we get out toward Texas Beta, and then as we look down here toward parts of South Florida, some moisture. I was tweeting about this, I guess we could say yesterday, early yesterday morning, during the night really, talking about a system trying to evolve there into this general vicinity, and we'll just watch to see how things go. 20% chance of cyclone formation right now within the next 5 days, so not a huge chance, but we'll have to watch it. You just never know here. But overall, the pattern does look to be suppressing some of the tropical activity as we look ahead into the timeline, at least in the very short term. Now, as we look ahead later on, things could ramp up one more time as we get into October. Just one more time here, folks. You have that tropical climatology. You can see a little peak there. Even into October, sometimes you can have. So we still have some more systems. We'll have to watch, I'm sure. This hurricane season isn't over, but things right now aren't looking like they're too big of a deal. Again, we've been talking about this, but here's Teddy. We still have it highlighted. Paulette will be highlighted again soon, probably. And as we get toward the Greek alphabet, we still have some more names that could be used as we look toward Beta here. Again, that's one that we're going to be watching toward Texas in the Greek alphabet, of course. And then as we look toward that extended forecast, now bringing it back to home, we haven't been able to see this in a while because things have been so busy around. But we're fall beginning here tomorrow, and that's what you like to see. These temperatures representative of fall as well, as you see 66 there tomorrow morning into toward the Jacksonville, Gainesville area. 64 as we get toward Wednesday. Really nice temperatures, folks. That frontal passes here playing a role, and then as you get toward your Thursday, temperatures starting to warm back up here a little bit, though, as we look toward your Thursday, 66, 69 on Friday. So, and then those highs are warming up as well with some more rain coming in the picture. It looks like our system there, our storm system, beta there, are going to be swinging some of that moisture back in. We'll hopefully see that not really impacting that Miami-Jacksonville NFL games Thursday night there into where Jacksonville. I know we're going to be watching the Saturday night game for the Seminoles as well as we look down toward South Florida. The Seminoles going there to take on the Miami Hurricanes. And you see the forecast again, representative of fall there beginning tomorrow as we look toward Tallahassee. And then as you see these temperatures warming up here in toward the picture, we're going to be seeing these rain chances come back into play here as well. So just have to be cognizant of that potential across our region. I think that pretty much does it here on this Monday. Pretty much tied about everything we need to. I'll be back exclusively there on the Twitter platform tomorrow unless something really warrants me coming on to both. If something really ramps up with our tropical storm, well, of course, we'll cut in. But otherwise, we're kind of just letting what we've been talking about here tell the story because it's not too impactful right now. I'll go back to the Doppler here one more time to tell you what is happening with this. Not that far away from landfall, though it is a slow mover, as they've been alluding to as we look out toward the Lone Star State, out toward Louisiana. Still got to be cognizant there. Watch your local meteorologist for the latest information on this situation here, just to make sure you don't get caught off guard by anything, because there will still be a few spots with some pretty big impacts. But overall, this is not a hurricane type situation or even a strong tropical storm type situation at this point, as the winds are pretty tame. But that rain will be the biggest threat from our tropical storm as we get out toward parts of Texas. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud. Have a great night, everybody.